And here we are. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining again. Today is going to be another awesome webinar. I know it's going to be awesome because we have with us Coach Mary Whittle, who is also a Jay Shetty coach. And today we're going to be talking about burnout. Now, I know, before I hand it over to Mary, this is really exciting because I went through the thing that she's going to be talking about, burnout. And I think a lot of people have at some point have gone through burnout as well. And through talking with Mary, I know that she's going to give us some insight into how to recognize what burnout is, and how to refuel and how to kind of relight the fire again. So before we move on, right, I want to give a massive shout out to everyone joining right now. It's from across the whole world. We've got Stephanie stateside, Marion Sartak in the UK. I'm in Dubai. We've got people from Beirut and even the Far East as well. So this is going to be really awesome. So thank you so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate your time and energy to join us today. Before I move on, we've got a chat box. This is really useful. Just a shout out to you guys. We've got a chat box. If you at any point of time have a question or any comments that you want to air live and get Mary or any one of us to kind of respond to, just use the chat box. That's really useful. Really useful tool. Okay. Right. That's enough of me talking, right? Wanted to kind of make that as short as possible. I'm going to bring on Mary. Mary, welcome to this live webinar.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me, for hosting me. Super exciting. I just wanted to add what you were saying. Like, if any of you want to talk at any point as well, just raise your hands either in your video or the little emoji as well. I'd be very happy, and I'm sure everyone would, to listen to somebody else's voice for a change, not just mine. So yeah, please do. And I'll be looking for any topics of discussion, anything that comes up in the chat box as well. So yeah, if you don't know me, my name's Mary. I was brought up in the northwest of London. So if you're the northwest of England. So if you're trying to place my accent, that would be why. But I live in London now, have done for a few years. And recently, in the last 12 months, I've been a member of the Jay Shetty Certification School of Coaching. If you're not familiar with Jay, he's a former monk. He's a best-selling author of the book Think Like a Monk. He's a keynote speaker. You may have seen some of his videos on social media, and perhaps also his podcast called On Purpose. Jay's motto and mission is to make wisdom go viral together. And, given everything that's happened in the last year, I personally am pretty ready for something else to go viral. I'm not sure about you guys. So, my mission has been to invite others to look at different perspectives, to see the world and their world from a different viewpoint so that they can start to make their life work for them. So yeah, if I can just make a difference to one person, whether that's in this webinar or in my life in general, then I'll feel like my time on earth has been well spent. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Disclaimer, I am not used to presenting. I'm a communicator at heart, in that I study languages at school, but presenting is not my forte. So hands up if I stumble over my words. There we go. But I really wanted to push myself out of my comfort zone today to talk about burnout, because it's something that's really important and really relevant, particularly in 2021, after the crazy year that we've had. Wherever you are in the world, I think you most likely have been affected by the pandemic in some way. I personally have been struggling with burnout and have been really working and doing research and working through tools to get through it. And I just love to share some of those with you today, so that you may learn from that and potentially pass it on and recognize those symptoms in other people so that you can support those around you. So just a bit of trivia: in the last year, searches on Google for terms like signs of burnout have increased exponentially, particularly among healthcare workers, but also with teachers and people of any other profession. And the actual definition of burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and or mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. So that might manifest itself as tiredness around the clock, or hating the work that you're doing, your vocation. Perhaps you might feel less capable. You might have seen a reduction in your performance. It may have physical symptoms as well, such as insomnia, feeling that you've got a short temper, even migraines or intestinal issues. You might feel emotionally exhausted or drained, or that you're unable to cope and process your emotions. So I guess so far I've not said anything that you couldn't just Google and find out for yourselves, but I just wanted to tell you a little bit about how that showed up for me, and why I want to talk about it. So I was so determined to make 2020 a great year in spite of everything that was going on. Seeing maybe my dad trying to connect, which is fun. So I had travel plans cancelled, holidays with some of the guys that are in this call today, that we could no longer go on. And so I was just really keen to do something different with my year that would make it a year to remember for a good reason. So I took on more than ever. I started doing a coaching course on top of a full-time job, as well as a part-time job as well that was supplementing my income. I also decided to train for a half marathon at the same time. And even the holidays that I was taking, those breaks of annual leave, I was spending doing more learning. I remember at one point in October, it was about a week after my second grandparent had died that year, and I was doing a Tony Robbins course, like a 4-day, 12-hour course in my holiday. So I just wasn't having that rest and relaxation time. And the only saving grace was that my day job as an editorial assistant wasn't very, it didn't require very much concentration from me. But that all changed when I was encouraged to take a promotion that I was offered, that I'd applied to. And suddenly, the reason that balance had so far just about worked for me shifted, and I was forced to, the role that I took on was project management. So it was suddenly more stressful. I was having to keep to deadlines, and it required a lot of concentration and learning, which I couldn't fit in my balance. And that all led to me 2 weeks ago quitting my job, which kind of seems quite an extreme move, but actually with my coaching and everything else, I'd made it sort of possible, and I knew that I could sustain myself. But I guess, it didn't have to come to that. If I'd have known what to do, if I'd have spoke about it or recognized that actually I was just burnt out and I needed to make some changes, then I could have done something earlier. And one of the other things I'd realized, which doesn't typically come in the definition of burnout, was I was having a passion burnout. I was spending most of my day doing something that I wasn't interested in. I was working to schedules that I couldn't have cared less about. And so when I was spending the time on things that I loved, that had just dampened it, and I was barely breaking even in terms of my pleasure. So that indifference had a huge effect on me, and that's why I've used the metaphor in this webinar about fire, of recognizing and refueling and relighting that passion, because I think that's a vital part of burnout that we don't normally talk about. That's my story. And I just wanted to debunk a few myths about what burnout is and isn't. One of them is something that I felt, which is I thought that it was reserved for only high flyers. I thought burnout can only happen to people who have crazy stressful jobs. I'm seeing a few nods around there. Like, I thought it was for lawyers. I thought it was for journalists, for frontline workers, whether that's in a hospital or in a war zone. So I thought, who am I to feel burnt out? But actually, it doesn't matter about your situation. If you feel like you're stressed, like that is valid and that is specific to you. Nobody can tell you what a stressful situation is because it's so personal. Yeah, I'm just seeing a kind of comment there. It kind of reminds me of imposter syndrome as well. Like, absolutely. And I was listening to a TED talk the other day, actually, with a comedian, a Tasmanian comedian called Hannah Gadsby. And she was talking about how, for her, standing up on a stage in front of an audience, trying to make people laugh and connect people is a way that she feels calm. For me, that would be my idea of absolute hell. Yeah, I couldn't think of something that I would find more stressful. So it's so subjective. So that's the first myth. And something else that I've heard a lot about is burnout and millennials, and how maybe burnout is just a myth that's been invented by millennials who are too soft and who aren't willing to put in the effort and the hard work that is needed in life. When actually the world that has been inherited by millennials is almost designed to lead to burnout. You know, we've been through two major crises recently, with the pandemic and also the recession just over 10 years ago. And our general lifestyle doesn't fit with the functions of our bodies. I mean, evolution is quite slow, whereas life moves pretty fast. So the example that I've got here is, think about cities, big cities. We see them as being long-standing and having existed for a long time. But actually, in the timeline of existence, if you think of existence as a timeline from 9 till 5, cities have only existed in the minute 4:59. They're so new to us that we haven't been able to evolve to keep up. And so what our everyday occurrences are perceived by our bodies as stressful. Similar applies to technology. You know, our notifications on our phones, screens that are designed to be addictive to keep us using them. I mean, the fact that Steve Jobs and Bill Gates discouraged their children from using a lot of technology is just a major red flag to us all. So, long story short, and please, I hold my hands up, I'm not great on science, so if there's anybody in the medical profession who can correct me and tell everyone what I actually mean, then please do. But I just want to say, so there's the part of our brain that produces an emotional response. It's called the amygdala. And it perceives these modern day threats as equal to life or death threats. So essentially, if you were being chased by a tiger who hadn't eaten in weeks, your body would create the same response as if you hear a ping from an email coming from the boss that you hate. You know, you might feel your stomach flips and that sensation of blood running from your stomach to your limbs so you can fight or flee. So, yeah, apologies again if I got that all wrong. But it just goes to show that we haven't evolved enough to be able to deal with it. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing that we can't do. Okay, I'm getting a clap from Charlotte. So I think that means we're good on, relatively okay on the medical side of things. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that there are things that we can do and tools that we can work through. And the first of those is recognizing, it's monitoring what causes stress for us, what is a symptom of burnout, and that way we can do something about it. So I've got an exercise that I'd love for you guys to do. Just want to ask if there are any questions, any comments first before we kick off with the first exercise.
I think absolutely amazing start, Mary. Thank you so much for just sharing your own experience with burnout. We've got a few comments in the chat box. I don't know if you want to go through them before we move on.
I'll start. So just looking through, Ani has said, yeah, great shout to Stephanie's comment. Let me just go back to Stephanie's comment so that we can go in more order. Yeah, I got stuck in the thought trap. What can others handle and why am I struggling? And am I struggling? Yeah, that's a great shout. You know, it's unique to all of us and you can't compare yourself in this kind of thing. No, comparison is the thief of joy, as they say, but it can also lead to immense stress and pressure on yourself. Yeah, so overachievers have the harshest language that they use to themselves. Yeah, it's so true. And I think it's really easy to advise a friend on something, and you might tell a friend if you notice they're struggling, you might say, oh, take some time off, take a break, you need it. But actually, do you ever say that to yourself? No, I'm seeing a few heads, heads shaking. Sarthak as well, it can be hard to come to terms with how everyone has their own ability and they're on their own path. Absolutely. I mean, nobody can tell you what's right for you. You're the only one who can know that. Yeah, passion burnout again. Yeah, it's something that's never mentioned, and I hadn't seen it anywhere, and it's something I've had to learn the hard way. Learning to practice self-compassion. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. So I don't know if any of you have pens and paper there. It might be quite useful to have a go at this exercise. Okay, Mum does. Thanks, Mum. Or a Word document or something. So I've got a checklist. I can't take the credit. It's come from Adrian Heinz, author of Science of Burnout, and Jay Shetty used it in one of his Genius podcasts as well. So I'm going to list some of these symptoms, and I'd like you to write them down if they apply to you in any way, shape, or form, just so that you can kind of have a note of that and look at that later. So the first thing could be reduced efficiency and energy. And we're looking at a longer term trend. I think it's normal if you've had a period of work and you're leading up to a break, then you're likely to find that you're really ready for that break. But if you're noticing a trend without explanation, then that is something for you to flag. You know, what is my efficiency and energy like at the moment? The second thing is a lower level of motivation. You know, again, it's natural to maybe feel more motivated at the start of the day, a little bit less towards the end, but again, something that's out of the ordinary. So number 2, lower level of motivation. Number 3 is increased errors. So if you're finding that you're making uncharacteristic mistakes, maybe at work, or you've become more forgetful when normally that isn't an issue for you, then that might be linked with burnout. Fatigue, that's number 4. It's kind of a constant fatigue, maybe feeling tired, even at the start of the day when you should have had a good night of rest. Number 5 is headaches or muscle tension. It's those physical aches and pains, migraines perhaps as well. The next one is irritability and increased frustration. You know, when you're feeling physically well, you find that you can push through so much more, and you're much more able to handle your emotions and keep them in the right place. So irritability and increased frustration. The next one is high levels of stress and anxiety. The reason it's high, I'm going to come back to this in a minute, is that a little bit of stress is actually quite good for us and can help us achieve what we really want to. But excessive levels is a bit of a red flag there. Suspiciousness and cynicism as well, constantly doubting people, that can actually be a symptom of burnout and stress. Trouble sleeping, feeling trapped, those are 2 more. Turning to substances such as alcohol to be able to cope. Then there's feeling worried about work when you're not at work. This was one of the biggest signs for me, actually, that I was struggling. So worrying about work when you're not at work. And then the final symptom is a loss of interest. Great. Does anybody want me to repeat any of those? Are we good? We're all good. Okay. So it's just a little exercise for you to look at now and to get you thinking about this and reflecting. And what is going to really help you in the long term is if you regularly check in with yourself and monitor how you're doing. So you might want to, at the end of your work week, whether that's a Friday or a different day, just ask yourself, where is my battery level right now? You know, I personally never let my phone run out of battery. I couldn't even tell you the last time it happened. I don't remember the last time I actually turned my phone off. And yet, why do we keep our phones topped up and not ourselves? So when you come to the end of your working week, think about, okay, where am I at? Am I at 50%? And then your weekend has to be built around that so you can recharge. And how you recharge is very personal. It depends on you and what gives you energy. Okay, so I'm coming up to the next exercise. Are there any? I'm just looking at the chat box. I've seen some things come up. Camille's put his in there. Okay, okay. You've typed them out. Thanks very much, Camille. Cool. So yeah, then it comes to that energy management and how to manage these. Once you've recognized and are aware of what could be factors that affect you, how do you then deal with them? So there are three key ways for me that I've picked up on that I'd like to share. The first is the concept of energy management versus time management. How many of you deal with time management as part of your day-to-day? Maybe your work? Yeah, I do. I mean, I remember it being one of the key skills in my job application. You have to prove that you're great at managing your time, which is, really useful, and it focuses on being efficient, but not necessarily being effective. And it can really help you achieve your goals. But when it comes to your mental health and your well-being, energy management is perhaps more insightful. And it's a way for you to kind of organize your time in a different way. So I'd like to invite you to think about an average day, a day in the life of you. What activities and tasks might come up for you? So I've written down some here that exist for me. Like an average day, I would spend some time doing my job, working, exercising. Sometimes that might be walking, it might be doing a HIIT workout. So feel free to make a note and just jot down some of the tasks that you do in your average day. Could be phoning family, Zoom quiz with friends, scrolling Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, I don't know, what else? Everything, television, Netflix, reading, could be commuting to work, cleaning, washing up. I feel like I do endless washing up. Taking the dogs for a walk, listening to music, cooking, eating, all those day-to-day things. So once you've jotted those down, we're then going to look at rebalancing, because all of those things use energy, but some of them drain energy, while some of them give us some energy back, right? If we enjoy them, if we feel passionate about them, or something like sleep, it gives us energy. It's a necessary part of our being. So once you've got your list, I would love for you to write a negative symbol to those activities and tasks that you feel drain energy. And I'd like you to put a positive symbol to those that give you energy. It could be energy in the form of inspiration or that positive feeling. So for me, exercise, some forms of exercise give me energy. Like if I take a quick walk, if I do a stretch, if I do a HIIT workout, I find that quite exhausting. So I might tend to do that at a different time of day, and those would have different symbols because of it. How are we doing? Good? Okay, cool. So once you've kind of, oops, thanks, Camille. Once you've looked at whether it's a kind of positive or negative, the next thing is to look at rebalancing. And so the aim with the negative, with the energy drainers, is to either eliminate or reduce the amount of time that you spend on it, reduce its presence in your life. And with the positives, either maintain its presence or increase the amount of time that you spend doing that in your life. So again, if you want to just go through that list, and you don't have to make a note if you don't want to, but just think about one way that you might be able to reduce or increase how it shows up in your day-to-day. You know, if you find that you have certain meetings at work that are just a total bore, you could maybe schedule them for 15 minutes rather than 30 minutes. And limiting that time would just save your energy. You know, similarly with, some phone calls, maybe instead of sitting at your desk, you could stand up and take the call outside, go for a little walk. I would say, though, that kind of thing, you're then verging on multitasking territory. And just to make a note on that, I guess, multitasking is a myth. It doesn't exist. It's what it actually is just changing really quickly between two things, which is very draining, and it makes it very difficult to remain focused on both of the things at the same time. So, yeah.
Mary, if you don't mind, I just want to kind of jump in. I just want to jump in there whilst everyone is writing down their notes. These are really, really interesting insights that you're giving us, because I if you don't mind, I really connect with what you've just said right there, in terms of trying to kind of balance the work and life kind of balance. What you mentioned about burning out at work and not being able to switch off from work. I went through that. And it had a kind of a negative impact on my life, not only my physical health, but also my relationship with the family, because I literally just couldn't switch off because I was worried and had anxiety about, you mentioned the things that you mentioned there. I really connected with me, the email or the phone call from the boss. I remember at one point, I hadn't even left the house yet to go to work, and already I'm getting the phone call on my phone. And instantaneously, what you said there about kind of the fight and flight reaction, literally, I could feel my kind of heartbeat going boom, 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 boom. And immediately it had a negative impact on me, because I completely switched off from the family. I was supposed to send my kids to school, but then I became cranky, and all sorts happened. All hell broke loose because my focus was, on the work, and I couldn't switch off. So what you've mentioned right there in terms of the list, and now we're going through the process of how to rebalance everything, I think it's really, really useful for people. So thank you for sharing that. I hope you don't mind. I'm just sharing my own personal experience.
No, thanks for sharing it. If anybody else wants to jump in and say how things have been for them and what resonates with them, then please do. But yeah, I had similar symptoms show up for me, and I felt that during my playtime, if you will, I just wasn't able to be present. I couldn't fully enjoy it. I couldn't give that energy because I didn't have any left, and my mind was somewhere else. So it's definitely about balance, for sure.
And what you said at the beginning about technology and where we are in terms of that's that whole debate about kind of people are saying millennials can't really do they have enough fiber in them to take pressure. It's not like the old days. I don't know. I kind of have a slightly different take on that, because I guess I have the benefit of growing up pre-Apple, pre-IBM, Microsoft and everything, before. So I remember, when I was growing up, we were playing, outside. There was no there was a TV. That was it. No computers, right? So I just felt like growing up, there was structure. There was more of a structure in terms of the way that we operated as a family when I was growing up. But now I'm reflecting on that. And, what you just said there, notifications, technology is always there. It's part and parcel of the life. But how do we then step back and how do we then, how does one expect someone to switch off when it's in your face all the time? So I guess we're trying to find a way to kind of recalibrate that and say, look, technology is useful, but how do we make sure that it doesn't run our lives for us, that we have we understand that there is a choice that we can make, that we have control over. So, I mean, what you mentioned at the beginning about technology and everything, I think it's all interrelated, that, burnout isn't kind of a standalone thing. I think it is kind of affected by multiple things, including technology.
Absolutely. And I think technology has been designed to speed things up. So when you now write an email or send a Teams message, in the past, that would have been a letter or that would have been a phone call, and it would have been a different thing. And we probably fit in so much more into a day now than we used to, but with a lot less variety. So I was doing some calculations before. I think some days, particularly at the start of lockdown, I was spending upwards of 14 hours a day on a screen between my computer, my phone, and my TV. And it's just bonkers. How do you live like that? And so even with doing this webinar today, I didn't want to do a presentation. I was thinking about it because I didn't like the idea of my face being on the screen the whole time. But I just thought, you know what, I don't want to. I want to take a pen and paper and jot some ideas down and share that with you guys. So yeah, I completely agree. And it's a really interesting thing to go.
Yeah, and I think about anxiety as well. Now that there is anxiety associated with technology, when your phone battery dies or something doesn't work, you click a link and it doesn't load and you start freaking out, or when you send the email and has it gone? Has it not gone? So all these bits and pieces of, 20 years ago, it wasn't really part of anxiety as such, but now anxiety associated with technology, that we expect it to work. And if it doesn't, if it's slow, for example, then we start getting anxious, right? If the Wi-Fi isn't, connected or, it's,
Yeah, even angry. Like, if you were on a flight and you knew that there was no internet, you'd kind of be able to deal with that and think, okay, I'm switching off for the flight. But if there was internet, if there were Wi-Fi and you had to pay for it and the connection was bad, you'd be so annoyed. You'd be so angry. It's crazy. But anyway, yeah, really interesting. I'm just looking at some of the comments. So Sarthak had said, completely agrees. Got a phone call at 5 p.m. from his director yesterday, and before picking up, he forgot all else, even though it ended up being a positive call. Yeah, and Sophie, so social media tech really accelerates the comparison mindset that we mentioned at the start. It's something that she wants to work on cutting out, but then she feels like she's anxious, missing out. I completely relate with that, and I'll sometimes try and build time into my day that's screen free. I'll put my phone on flight mode, and it's something that I've had to work with. I'm thinking, well, what's happening? But actually, Sophie's similar age to me. So when we were kids, we didn't have mobiles and we had telephones. So you might ring your friend, see what was going, but you didn't know what everyone's up to all the time. So it's only recently that that's become a habit for us, that we now feel like we're missing out, when actually it wasn't an issue. You just didn't know and you just got on with your life regardless. So yeah, it's
I think what you mentioned there about habit is really important. That's one of the key things, habit, that sometimes we don't catch ourselves that we are actually, this is now part of our habit, daily habit, that it takes certain awareness to kind of step back and assess, what is it that am I doing that's actually habit, it's actually a habit in my life. So sometimes we don't realize that, out of nowhere, it becomes a habit. Like, it's just that when you, like Sophie saying, if I don't get on social media, I feel like I'm missing out and stuff. It's only at that point that you step back and say, well, why am I missing out? Is it because I'm actually doing it on a daily basis that, it's become a habit now that, it's a bit difficult to kind of not do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And as you know, how habits work is that you repeat an action until it becomes natural, until you do it without thinking. So to break a habit or to create a better habit, you've got to apply the same process, and you've got to practice cutting it out, whether that's for 30 minutes before you go to bed or for the majority of your day. And you've got to do it day on day for at least 3 weeks before it starts to feel more normal and you're not having to consciously think about it, and it's not on your mind that you're doing something that you wouldn't normally do. So it's, yeah, as you said, it comes down to habits. And I would add with phones that there's the element of addiction. They're designed to keep us stimulated, to keep our eyes on the screen, which certainly makes it harder. But at the end of the day, it's doable for sure. Cool.
So, should we get back to, I do apologize, we digressed slightly off road.
And I know a few people have just recently joined as well whilst we were talking. So just to highlight, we've gone through some of the symptoms and some things to monitor, how to monitor how you're doing, your energy levels, what you're finding stressful. We then looked at how to rebalance that and manage it. And we did a bit of an audit about your day-to-day and how to change the amount of time that you spend on things that give you and take away energy. The last part of that, I would say, is mentorship, and to find a mentor that fits with something that you have a tendency to struggle with. So, for example, if you are susceptible to insomnia, or if that is one of the first things that shows up for you, first things to show up for you when you're feeling a bit burnt out, then you may want to listen to some podcasts that talk about it. Or perhaps you have a friend who you can really connect with and discuss those kind of things with. It may be that you turn to a coach or a therapist, whatever works for you in that situation. Having a mentor will help you keep on top of it. And so these three things, your monitoring, rebalancing, and the mentor, you can just keep going around in circle to avoid you ever getting to that point where you feel completely burnt out and run down to the ground. So I guess in terms of the title of this podcast, recognize, refuel, relight, that would be the refuel section. The relight for me is really to do with your passions. And, as I was saying, like, you guys all did really great there in listing your activities and tasks that you do day on day. But I bet some of your real passions, they don't even come into your everyday. And so relighting for me is, how can I step up? How can I increase the amount of time I'm spending on the things that I'm passionate about? So you may want to just jot down now 3 to 5 things that you're really passionate about. I mean, for me, that is when I find myself in a state of flow. So when time flies and you don't realize, that for me is something that's a passion. So it could be, I'm in a bit of a houseplant obsession at the moment. So when I'm tending to and repotting plants or shopping for plant pots, that's something I'm quite passionate about. Or could be learning and personal development for me. That's something that I really love. And so once you're aware of what those things really are for you, it's about starting to think, how can I turn up the volume? How can I make that a more prevalent part of my life? And that will all kind of come together to keep you not only kind of well and far from burnout, but it actually will give you more meaning and purpose as well. feel free to share some of your passions in the chat box, so you don't make me feel completely mad for loving plant pots. Something else that I just thought I'd share with you, I saw it on TikTok of all places, and it was one of the triggers for me to hand in my notice at my job. And it was the question, if you knew you had exactly 5 years to live, what would you do? What would you do differently? And I found it really interesting because we've all probably thought of the question, if this was my last day on earth, how would I spend it? But 5 years is a really interesting time frame because it's long enough that you need to put plans in place to sustain yourself. I personally don't have 5 years worth of savings to be able to go on holiday for that long, but it's also short enough for you to not want to waste a second doing something that you don't enjoy. So yeah, just as a final reflective question from me, I'd just invite you to think about, what would you do if you knew you had just 5 years left? Nature walks, time with my friends and family, travel. I'm seeing from Stephanie in the books there. Yeah, I love time outdoors. For me, it's just one of those things that can make me feel better no matter what. It can be pouring it down with rain, which it often is in the UK, and I'll feel better for it. I love it. So does anyone have any questions, any things they want to share, any topics they think are relevant that they'd love to discuss? Feel free to pipe up.
I was just going to go back to something we were talking about before, kind of getting distracted and stressed so much. And I think, and even social media, right? It's not a bad thing. There's so many positives from it. I think it's just a huge mindset thing, like starting your day correctly. So like, for example, 2020 was really tough for everyone, but in 21, I've started to kind of make sure I do at least 15 minutes of just reflective exercise in the morning to kind of just become mindful, so that you realize when you're stressed, and you can pick up on the 10 or 12 different things you were saying about burnout. Just being mindful, I think, is such a huge thing that we need to practice. It's almost like you're on a road and there's lots of cars just going past, but you need to make sure you don't get into a car, you just watch them flow by and don't get distracted by them.
No, that's so right. How can you tell what's going on with yourself if you don't take that time, whether it's meditation or just reflecting or just having a bit of quiet time? If you don't listen to yourself and kind of become aware of your thoughts, you're never going to notice those things in you, those symptoms. Yeah, thanks, Sarthak.
What came up for me was a new practice that I started several months ago, which was kind of building on what Sarthak is saying, kind of starting with a morning meditation and then really shifting into gratitude journaling and identifying things that I'm feeling really grateful for as a way to just kind of return to feeling more present. And I have found that that's like a refuel kind of processor or an energy inducing, enhancing activity. And some folks that I've talked to, like, I don't, like to write in journals, but some of the people that I've coached have found some really creative ways to do like audio journaling, or there's some gratitude kind of prompts that people have found. So just wanted to share that's been a really supportive practice for me.
Beautiful. Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, gratitude is something that we look at a lot in coaching, kind of bookending your day with gratitudes and journaling as well. And something that I've picked up recently just from a book that I was reading is how with gratitude, it's really good to be specific. And if you're doing a daily gratitude practice, writing down 3 things, keep them specific and kind of micro gratitudes. So there's something that doesn't happen every day, could be that you notice a cute dog like walking by, and that will really help boost your energy, like Stephanie was saying, but also start your day with that positive mindset. And then on an evening, if you've got some things that you're worrying about that are on your mind, journaling and writing about them in more detail and at more length can be really therapeutic, because it gets your prefrontal cortex on board. So you go from your kind of your amygdala kind of stress response, emotional response, and you start tackling it with logic. And so kind of on the flip side, as I said, with gratitudes, it's really cool to be specific. They're kind of one-off things, but also don't analyze them, because you do the same. You would get your logical side on board, and it actually then decreases the intensity. So you want to decrease the intensity with negative experiences, but keep it high with positive, but remind yourself of things that you're grateful for sure.
I wanted to say 2020, yeah, for sure for me also was quite difficult, and it's talking more around that reignite piece, where I'm a world champion of being a warrior, even before COVID, so you can imagine in what it threw me into. But I also have been being a mom and having a full-time demanding job and all that has kind of pushed me into almost like that denial piece, watching Netflix after Netflix and after season and just not wanting to do anything else. And I at one point stopped that cycle, and I said, okay, what is it that I really want to fill my days with? And it was then that I also subscribed to the coaching school with Jay Shetty. And I've been reading and being passionate about personal development for 20 years. So I was like, okay, let me go back to that. And from then I kind of felt that shift of me couldn't wait to get up in the morning and do all of that, or couldn't wait to kind of, even if it was a stressful day at work, I knew even if I had 15 to 20 minutes where I could do something that I actually put my intention to do for the day, it made a lot of difference and stop that kind of vicious cycles a little bit, spinning into out of control in terms of worry. So yeah, I completely can back you up on the reignition for sure.
Amazing. Thank you, Annie, so much for sharing that. Yeah, it's just dedicating that time, I guess, and building it into your day makes all the difference. Does anybody have anything else that they'd like to share? Anything that they do?
Charlotte's putting up her hand, so I don't know, maybe you can.
Charlotte? Sure, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. Hi, Mary. Thank you so much for the talk. I really enjoyed it. And I really particularly like the exercise. I can't remember the last time I physically picked up a pen and put it to paper, because everything I do is on the screen. So thank you so much for that. One of the things I noticed and struggled with was how to I guess, characterize some of the things I listed, particularly work meetings. And I don't know if anyone else feels the same. And I think it's a reflection of the pandemic and working from home. Because on one hand, I find that a work meeting can reignite this sense of passion and enthusiasm in my work, but it's really short-lived. And by the end of the day or the next day, I'm sort of back in my burnt out slump. So I really liked your suggestion of keeping those meetings short, so 15 minutes, half an hour max. I really like that suggestion. And the other one was multitasking. So I noticed that within myself, I sometimes go for a walk around the area where my department is. But whilst I'm on that walk, I also have my phone and I'm checking my emails and quickly replying to them. And I think I'm being efficient when really I'm just not enjoying the moment, which is the nice walk. So yeah, that's something I'm going to take home. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, I've definitely been guilty of that, where I go out on a walk intentionally thinking, okay, I need a break. And then before you know it, you're picking up your phone and you're like looking at WhatsApp messages and stuff. And actually you could have just done that from your sofa. So yeah, I completely agree with you there. something that sorry, go on, Camille.
On you go.
I was just saying that something that I've started doing is I love running. That's my exercise of choice for me when my muscles allow. And I've started not listening to music. I used to find that the music really helped me in terms of keeping going, but actually it was a lot of mental noise and especially if your step isn't quite in time with the music, and it was really distracting for me. Whereas now I go with nothing. If possible, I don't take my phone, I take my watch, and I just go, and it's very freeing. And I've found that I notice things around me a lot more, the little things that make you smile, just nature, flowers, people watching is great. So yeah. Go on, Camille, what were you going to say?
Sorry, that's really interesting. I mean, that it comes back to what I want to kind of just add on to what Charlotte mentioned. You just mentioned it there, that we have control of what we do. So leaving the phone at home and going out for a run is a choice that you decide that, yes, I'm not going to bring my phone because it might cause me to get distracted. So I just want to enjoy nature. I want to go out and enjoy and be out there running. I really kind of connect with what Charlotte mentioned there, because I go through this on a daily basis. Previously, I manage it well, but now I feel that I'm managing it a bit better. What I'm talking about is Microsoft Teams meetings, right? Whether I'm at home or I'm at work during the day, we've got the scheduled meetings. Okay, everyone sends a meeting invite, and I look at my calendar. Okay, I've got meeting here, 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 here. But what's annoying sometimes are the unscheduled meetings. So in between these scheduled meetings, because it's so available, someone can just call you up on my laptop, and suddenly it starts buzzing, right? So usually I would go through the scheduled meetings, and in between, sometimes someone would call and I would immediately pick up. So I would go through a whole workday, literally. I'm just saying this out loud here. Literally, there was one day I didn't even go to the toilet. I didn't even go to the loo, because it was meeting after meeting and someone calling. And then I had to get this email out. Literally the whole day I was exhausted. I was like, I need the loo right now. The whole workday. Now, what I'm doing right now is that if you don't send me a meeting invite and you call me unscheduled, I have a choice. I can choose whether to pick up, or I just let it ringing, and or I just cancel it, because that's the only way that I can get time back to myself. So I can, work out like today, tomorrow, for example. If I look at my work schedule, okay, I've got two meetings, maybe one in the morning, one in the afternoon. In between, technically, if I have a choice, right? So I really connect with what Charlotte mentioned there, but just to kind of remind myself that I have the option to pick up or not to pick up. So if it's a scheduled meeting, I have to attend. If it's unscheduled, then I have a choice. So I don't know. That's the way I deal with it right now. I don't know if it helps with other people, just to kind of remind yourself that you do have a choice to decide whether to pick up or not.
Yeah, I think it does. Just looking at the chat, Sophie said it's a simple idea but effective. Charlotte had said that she hears you completely, that you can't hide from Microsoft Teams. I do try and hide from Microsoft Teams and pretend that I'm offline when I'm not. But yeah, general consensus that people can relate. Sarthak ends up scheduling his day for emails, breaks, work and meetings, but still meetings can take up a lot of time. Yeah, Sophie's highlighted that we have a choice. It's something I hadn't even considered. Yeah, in everything that we do, we have a choice, whether it's what we do or how we, our attitude in what we do. Annie said she started blocking her time more. Yeah. There's a running theme.
I think it's prevalent now with Microsoft Teams and Zoom calls and everything. So great that it is a lot of people are facing the same issues. Stephanie put her hand up.
Yeah, please.
A while ago. I want to come back to Stephanie.
I think I was acknowledging, not that I had a question. So yeah, just acknowledging a previous comment. Thanks, though.
Amazing. I just wanted to ask you, Camille, what is the biggest thing that you've found works for you? Like you mentioned Teams, you know, what has changed, how you've been dealing with the situation post burnout?
Yeah, I guess, like I mentioned, I went through the same situation. I think at the beginning of like this time last year, this whole Microsoft team meeting, working from home was completely new to everyone. I think there was anxiety not only with what's happening with COVID, but also having to function in a completely new way of working. I remember this time last year, okay, we've been told to work from home, but then the technology wasn't there to catch up. Like, okay, we're at home, I'm at home, I have my laptop, but then there was whole stress of the IT department not being able to kind of give access, and Microsoft Team was new. So the anxiety kind of morphed from one thing to another. But now I guess there's a degree of stability that, okay, there's a new way of working. But again, now it's taking a step back and saying, like I mentioned just now, if it's not scheduled, if it's not in my calendar, I have a choice. I remember sometimes, when I'm just going to get a cup of coffee and, the Microsoft Team thing starts buzzing. Bzz, bzz, bzz. So I have a choice not to pick up. I'll make a mental note, maybe after my coffee or after the break, I'll call back, but I don't allow myself to pick up, because if not, then I won't have a break. And I know that's going to be detrimental to my health and my mental health as well, physical and mental health. So like I said, there was one, point, where literally I went through the whole day not even having a break. And I was so exhausted. I couldn't even I literally needed kind of maybe, 10, 15 minutes sleep after that, before I went home, because I was so exhausted that day. So I made a mental note that, if it's not scheduled, that's the way I work now. If it's not on my calendar, if someone just immediately just calls, I make a mental note, I write it down, or I'm, apologize, saying, look, can I call you back later? And I don't, engage in another discussion after that. So yeah, so that's the way I operate now, and it seems to be working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sophie's just got a question for you, actually, Camille. Do you have to explain yourself to your colleagues if they don't pick up? Have they been understanding, and do they accept?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question. I remember this happening at my previous office, where I was adopting this now, and my manager got really, really, pissed off. Basically, he said, why are you answering my calls? And I said, there was a point where I just said, look, I needed a break. It's almost like it depends where you work, but I was in an environment where it was really almost a really toxic environment, where it seems that if you're in work, you're supposed to be online, whenever you're at work, and that's humanly impossible. You can't be there. If you're 9 to 5, you can't be there 9 to 5 literally the whole time being switched on. Now, this really funny. I watch I love the American Office. I know we have the Ricky Gervais version, but I like the Michael Scott version as well. And there was one episode that I watched recently where this was literally happening. There was the one guy character, Dwight Schrute, and he was complaining that people were not at work during work time. So Jim then goes along and starts writing down whenever even Dwight has a yawn, right? Not at work, not at work. So it's that's a kind of I guess a take on how corporations expect you to be online. When you're at work, this is what we're paying you for, but we're not robots. We're human beings, right? There's a degree of I guess yes, when you have something to deliver, you do deliver, but we are human beings. We need breaks. We can't function all the time. So I guess going back to what Sophie is asking, I guess that's the only way that I just explain, I needed a break, or, I'll get back to that particular, question, or I'll call you back, can I call you back tomorrow? So I guess that's a kind of a more diplomatic way of dealing with it, I guess.
I can see Annie put her hand up there that she relates.
I absolutely relate to Camille, and sometimes you have to be more diplomatic, Sophie, and we can't always tell them I had to take a break because you don't want them to kind of give you sarcastic remarks. So, because we get a lot of these, but you can always say like that you were kind of actually focusing on a project or whatever you were doing, because there are things we need actually to block hours to actually do the work. Otherwise, the whole day can be very reactive between meetings and answering emails. And it's the piece also about, I can't remember who said about, I think it was Southak saying it's that setting boundaries piece, because especially in a company where people email you and some have no boundaries of messaging you or emailing you at night or a day or any time of day. It's especially with overachievers, sometimes you want to show that you're on the ball and kind of play the game a little bit, like, oh, let me respond too at the same time so they can see how hard I'm working. But that's very, very dangerous, slippery slope. So if they learn at the end that, okay, she won't pick up unless it's between 9 and 6, they stop bothering you because you still deliver the results. And kind of remove from that reactive pattern. Okay, I got an email, let me respond to that email. You don't have to kind of blocking times for email where you're reactive versus proactive, and doing the deep work you want to do can make a massive difference in your day-to-day happiness as well. So yeah, I completely agree with Camille and Sarthak.
I think in my first year of work, there was a senior manager. He's left the firm for industry now, but he said, like, from your day one, you need to set your boundaries, because once you've broken them once, people are like, oh, but this is super urgent, it's fine, he'll break it, and next thing you know, you're getting calls at 10 p.m. all the time. And I went through a really bad phase for that, but you just have to be strict, I think.
Yeah, set your boundaries and you set those expectations. I was just looking at what Sharifa had said, that her employer expects her to be in front of the computer 24/7, but they would not expect you to do that if you were in an office, if you were in a place of work. So yes, those are their expectations, but when you set the boundaries and say, these are my working times, this is when I'm available, their expectation will change. And if you're doing what you need to do, then they'll realize that it's not that you're not working, it's that you're doing that work during those hours, right?
I know, sorry, I was just going to say, it's the same with social media, because I know it kind of work. Now we have WhatsApp groups on work, right? On WhatsApp. And I'm saying, hang on a minute, this is WhatsApp. This should be social media. Why do we have a work group on Microsoft Teams, and now we have a WhatsApp group talking about work? So anyway, so I'm there, but I make sure that I don't, engage in any work conversation after work, because like you said, it's about setting boundaries. If I start to have, engage in WhatsApp, I guess, work group after work, then the expectation's there. Right? Oh, Camille will answer my query about, whatever meeting that's going to happen tomorrow. I don't. So I try not to. I even kind of switch off notifications. So the next morning, I switch it on. Then I'll catch up. Right? So I've set that from day one. I guess in my office. So now people know. Like even my boss now, he knows not to kind of send me, WhatsApp messages at night, because I'm not going to see it. Physically, I'm spending time with my family, with my kids. I need that time. I need that time. If not, I'm going to be on all the time and I won't be able to switch off from work. So that's, again, setting boundaries is really useful. Sorry, Mary, I think you're on mute at the moment. Mary?
It was always going to happen at some point, wasn't it? We did well to get through an hour. without the you're on mute. I was just saying that there are a couple of book recommendations as well in the chat. Sarthak's mentioned The Power of Habit, which I actually have but haven't read yet, so thanks for that. And Annie's recommended The 4-Hour Work Week, which I have read, and which I would recommend as well. Very interesting, and a lot of what that book talks about is trying to encourage or convince your employer to let you work from home. And we're already there, so as good or bad as it is, yeah, so if you're interested, check that out. I'm just looking at time. We've just gone past the hour, so I'm sure you all have wonderful Saturdays planned, so I don't want to keep you too much. Camille, is there anything that you want to add?
No, I think that's been really kind of, you know, I'm full of energy now because we're talking about a subject which connects with people. And what you mentioned about reshifting your energy from the things which are negative to spending more time on the things that give you positive energy. So this is, for me personally, these sessions, I really look forward to these sessions because I get to connect with people. I get, you know, quality information from coaches like yourself, people who are, you know, engaging in the comments. These are the moments, you know, people ask me, you know, sometimes, you know, how do you get the energy? And I said, you know, these sessions give me energy. I'm passionate about these things. So again, thank you so much to everyone who's engaged with the chat box. Really thank you all. You can unmute yourself. Sorry, I do apologize. So just unmute yourself, and you know, we can have maybe a two, 3 minute session at the end. So thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thanks guys. It's been really great, and really great to hear your thoughts and things that you've been working with as well. Yep, so energizing, says Sarthak.
I just want to kind of remind everyone, again, if you're watching this on replay, you can connect directly with Mary, who is a Jay Shetty coach. Mary, you know, how do people get in touch with you again? Through
you can email me at marywhittlecoaching@gmail.com, or my website is going to go live soon, which is marywhittle.com.
Awesome. Sorry?
Please do get in touch. I'm very nice.
No, she is an awesome coach. When we were in the school together, and literally, you know, Mary's one of the coaches, which is why I'm getting her on the channel, because you know, really kind of insightful, and gives you the space that you need, which is what great coaches do. So again, get in touch with Mary. I highly recommend her as a coach. Okay.
And likewise, I know you'll all have Camille's details from the email, but same, he's great.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Is that okay? We end it here right now.
Yeah.
Thanks, Camille. Thanks, Mary. This is great.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you, everyone. Thank you so much for attending, and see you guys soon. Okay. Take care. Peace and love to you always, and God bless. Bye bye for now.